This is Sarah Guthrie, granddaughter of Woody Guthrie.
As I was walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. Let's sing it together. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Oh, I've roamed and rambled, and I follow my footsteps through the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts. And all around me a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. All at once. This land is your land. This land is mine. To the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. There was a great high wall there that tried to stop me, and on the wall it said no trespassing, but on the other side it didn't say nothing. That side was made for you.
On the 9th of October 2019. The title of our episode, Greta Thunberg at the Standing Rock Reservation in North Dakota. We will cut that down, but basically she spoke at the Standing Rock High School. That is in North Dakota, and I'm looking at, and we're falling back on here, the Bismarck Tribune. We've fallen back on them many, many times and appreciate their local coverage of events there in the state of North Dakota. She spoke to hundreds of students there, and the tribal government there in North Dakota at Standing Rock were available. And when we finish here, we'll have the speech that she gave there in an edited version of the event, I should say. Nonetheless, she was Greta was along with Tokata Iron Eyes, spoke on their views of the environment in Fort Yates, North Dakota. That was on Tuesday. As reported here, it shows them. Tokata Iron Eyes was speaking there, and to the people there as members looked on, and she also spoke there too. And the chief of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, the chairman I should say, Mike Faith, was there greeting Greta, who lined up to greet the 16-year-old, and we are appreciative of youth coming forward there. And at a Standing Rock, nice photo here of her. She was also in South Dakota. She visited Rapid City. That was on Monday for a climate rally there. And this is from the Rapid City Journal. Gave it international attention when she scorned the world leaders at the United Nations visiting Rapid City and the American Indian reservations in North Dakota. Now, she was at Pine Ridge, a panel discussion on the Pine Ridge Reservation that's in South Dakota. That was on Sunday, and also a discussion on the Standing Rock Reservation in North Dakota. Thunberg will be in Rapid City today for the climate rally and the march, and it's already over now, but nonetheless it was to Memorial Park. She had a nice day for that in North Dakota there. And Thunberg and Tawana Iron Eyes will lead the rally, and this is the one we're talking about. That will be will include the Oglala Sioux President Julian Bear Renner, and the Lakota People's Lore Project, led by Chad Iron Eyes, and the NDN Collective Executive Director Nick Tilson, and the organizer there, Canty Hart. And the rally and march are sponsored by the Oglala Sioux tribe, Last Real Indians, the Lakota Lore Project, etc. The Lakota People's Lore Project said Thunberg is concerned about the proposed Keystone pipeline, something we've been covering for a very long time, through South Dakota, as well as plans to double oil petroleum flow through Dakota Access pipeline that is in North Dakota. But now they bypassed Bismarck because of the population there, and went into the native land. She traveled to the U.S. in August on a sales boat. You remember the sailboat? She sailed into New York Harbor. So this is a nice little collection here that they were able to do, and we liked it. And let's see, we also have, we can get this up, the Grand Forks Herald. We've used it to recall the strike of the sugarcane workers there in Grand Forks, North Dakota. We've done some organizing in North Dakota there, doing a solar farm opening ceremony. The Bismarck reported that Iron Eyes told the crowd, "I don't know if you guys know what this means to me right here. It means," just a second here. It means, wait a minute here. Get the rest of his comment here. Join us, sign a petition. Anyway, said indigenous people have a very close connection with Mother Earth because she's the one that provides us and nurtures us. The campaign helped draw thousands of national and international visitors to Standing Rock to fight the pipeline in a protest that lasted for a year. The pipeline, though, was eventually installed crossing Lake Oglala on the Missouri River just north of Standing Rock Reservation. Even so, the tribe's Environmental Protection Agency continues to fight the line in court, as others from the Standing Rock Nation have built memorial for the protest to create built a momentum, for the protest to create more a sustainable future. One of those people is Iron Eyes, who is now a junior in high school and sits on the board of a new sustainable energy group called Indigenized Energy. The group, run by Cody Two Bear, has installed a solar farm near the site of the 2016 protest. During the solar farm's opening ceremony, the Bismarck Herald reported, and this is back to where we were, but Iron Eyes told the crowd, "I don't know if you guys know that what this means to me right here. It means I get to have a safe future. It means my children get to have a safe future. It means that I get to see my grandchildren. It is the beginning. I can't wait to build more of these." In September at George Washington University, Iron Eyes met with Greta Thunberg, the 16-year-old Swedish activist there, and Thunberg, Iron Eyes then invited Thunberg to her homeland, according to the Lakota People's Lore Project. Iron Eyes' father is Chad Iron Eyes, the lead counsel of the Lakota Lore Project. In 2016, he ran on successfully as a Democratic candidate for the lone seat in North Dakota. A friendship was formed between the two teams, who may come from very different backgrounds, but needless, they have much in common. On the 6th, that was Sunday, the two teenagers spoke at the climate change and proposed Keystone XL pipeline at Red Cloud Indian School on the Pine Ridge Reservation. That's in South Dakota. And that was where Tokata Iron Eyes is now a student. And this is where you will hear that speech of there. And actually you'll hear it in North Dakota on the 7th. That was Monday. Thunberg and Iron Eyes were to appear at the rally in Rapid City. They in fact did. The two will take the stage, this time at the Standing Rock High School. And this is the one you will hear in Fort Yates, North Dakota. The different numbers being given here, but we are at the edge of a cliff in regards to our timeline to save the planet, and indigenous people will be the ones to lead the movement off the edge. The South Dakota Public Broadcasting Company reported less people there. There were hundreds of people there. There is no doubt about that particular situation. So we'll have that particular address rally there at the high school at Standing at the Standing Rock, Pine Ridge in South Dakota, Standing Rocks in North Dakota, as we moved from the Bismarck Herald. Let me update you if we have some polling here that we have here, some of the latest polling and some of the latest information. The White House has decreed they will not cooperate with the House Impeachment Committee. As many people are aware, the impeachment appears in the Constitution, and it is the sole domain of the House of Representatives, who set the parameters for an impeachment inquiry. Period. The White House is claiming that the House of Representatives do not have the constitutional authority to do what they are doing, and that in itself is a very, very misinterpretation of the Constitution. The impeachment process, high crimes and misdemeanors, is, I should say, the rules of procedure are set in the House. They are not enshrined in the rules of civil procedure, and it's not a criminal procedure. But the impeachments in recent time was the impeachment of William Jefferson Clinton, President Clinton. That the House did that, and there was a formal vote. Now, there's not been a vote taken yet, so there's a lot of things here that need to be seen. Now, in the Watergate one, that there was never an impeachment proceeding, but there was a grand jury ran there in Washington by the late Judge John Maximum Sirica. And many people were brought before the grand jury, and of course many people went to jail. John Dean, who is still around, and we'll bring in some future broadcasts John Dean's explanation of this. It was one of the star witnesses there. The difference here, however, is this particular, the offenses so far revolve around the attempt to influence Ukrainian officials to investigate Joe Lunchbox Biden and his son Hunter, which is an interference in the election process in the U.S. Now, that situation is a little bit different. First of all, many people in the U.S. really don't know where the Ukraine is, and people are not in tune to foreign policy. Whereas with Tricky Dick, there was a burglary. People understand when something is burglarized, they understand when it's covered up. Now, there had been attempts to cover this particular matter up. There's no doubt about that. They have a lot of tweets. But the problem is to get people that actually sent these tweets. They had one for Samuelson, I think his name is, a hotel magnate out of Portland, Oregon. He was supposed to appear, and he evidently had given his tweets over, at least some of them, but the White House instructed him not to appear. He is the U.S. ambassador to, of all things, the EU. So this is going to be a continual record played there with people that are in the administration at the present time. The administration is going to bar them from testifying. And, of course, this will go to court, and it could lag out. That's part of the problem right there. And it maybe perhaps in some instances to the Supreme Court. But courts don't usually like to interfere in the House process. Now, there is something as contempt of Congress. Now, that can go to a court. That is a different process there altogether. But we look at the clock is ticking. Incidentally, there was a major mistake that we at this mic made thinking back on Bill Clinton. And let me first explain what happened. There was a Paula Jones scandal, and there was also white water swirling around Bill Clinton prior to his re-election. And then he goes, of course, was reelected. Now, in his last year, that would have been 1999, was when the impeachment came. He was impeached by the House of Representatives, trial before the Senate, and he was acquitted. Now, the mistake I made that he ran for re-election. No, he was not. He did not run for re-election, but he did finish out his term, and his polling numbers actually increased at that particular time. That was Bill Clinton. We make mistakes sometimes, and as part of the problem with the impeachment process. When we talked about Whitewater before, and Paula Jones, if you remember Paula Jones, this was an older event. She was a worker for the state of Arkansas, and Bill Clinton supposedly and her were in the hotel rooms while he was governor of Arkansas. So sometimes there can be these events that are in the past, a number of years in the past. Now, these were the Republicans on the Newt Gingrich that were prosecuting this particular situation. They had a man named Starr. Starr was the special prosecutor. And they had that special prosecutor. Now, in this instance, they don't have a special prosecutor in panel. The closest they had to one was Mueller. But Mueller just covered the Russian involvement there. Again, that was a situation where he made a report, but let the Attorney General make the first report. That was the impression that the President did not interfere. And thus Mueller came back and said, yes, he did, but you can't indict a sitting president, and people have sort of forgot about that. And that is the problem with this particular situation. We'll have more on this. There was an interesting discussion. It wasn't very long. It was on Face the Nation, and you had Jamel Bowie. He used to be with Slate and does appear on Face the Nation. Now he's a columnist for the New York Times. And he basically talked about the problems with this impeachment process, which includes time, etc. Can they keep the American people focused on it? And if you recall, on the week that was, and the Monday Morning Quarterback, we talked about the holidays. So there are a lot of ifs, ands, and buts about this whole process. But now the Democrats are presenting this on the same theme as the newly elected Democrats, who many of those have been in the military and intelligence community, as their constitutional duty, part of their oath. DJ Trump claims as president he's allowed to investigate corruption. Well, he says he's not I Spy or any type of agent like that, and it's not his job to investigate political candidates that could be his competition in the 2020 election. That is not part of his job. That's not part of his constitutional mandate. His constitutional mandate is to be President of the United States, not the cheap investigators as Snoop Dogg or somebody investigating people in the Ukraine. That is not part of his job. He is expanding his job beyond what it is. So basically what you have is a Disneyland situation coming here. Let me go now to the polling. I thought we'd just bring that out and see where we are. Now, this is the latest polling. I believe it is from Fox News here. We have, it is a Fox News. Why I'm missing it, I have no idea. And this is at Real Clear Politics. And there are two polls from Quantipec. This is Quantipec. I'm sorry about that. This is a Quantipec poll here and a Fox News poll. Several of them here, and the Morning Consult. So we got polls and polls and polls for Monday. The Quantipec, this is a national poll on the 8th of October. Elizabeth Warren has 29, Joe Lunchbox Biden at 26, Bernie Sanders, who's resting in Vermont, at 16, Buttigieg at 4, Harris at 3, Yang at 3, Beto at 1, Senator Booker and Senator Klobuchar at 2 points each, Castro at 1, and Warren is up by 3 in the Quantipec poll. Now we have the Politico Morning Consult poll. Biden is up by 12. You can see how these polls really vary here. He has 33 and Warren 21. And Bernie Sanders in a statistical heap there at 19. Buttigieg is still in his 5. And Harris actually has 6 in this, and Beto is doing better. He has 3. Senator Booker at 2. Senator Klobuchar at 1 in the national poll. Now, if we look at the matchup, again, this is Quantiac. Elizabeth Warren is ahead by 8 points, 49-41 over DJ Trump. Biden is ahead by 11 points, 51-40 over DJ Trump. And Bernie is ahead by 7 points. Now to the Pennsylvania Democratic primary, Fox 43 in Susquehanna poll. Biden is up by 8. He has 17. Warren has 9. Bernie has 6. And actually, Buttigieg has 8 in this poll. I'm not sure what's going on here. Harris 1 and Amy Klobuchar 1. That's Susquehanna. Now, Louisiana. We haven't seen any polling out of Louisiana yet. This is Emerson out of Boston. And this is Edwards. This is open primary. Edwards up by 23. Rapon is at 25. Abraham is at 19, so he's way ahead. Mason-Dixon, another polling company out here, has Edwards up by 25, and basically about the same thing. You have Abraham at 17 and Rapani at 22. So we know Rapani is in the 22, and John Bell. Edwards is ahead, way ahead there. They have what's called a jungle primary there, and some approval numbers from Wall Street Journal. 43% approve of DJ Trump, 53% disapprove. Quantiac, 40% approval, 54% disapprove. And Rasmussen's the only outliner here. They have 45% approval. It's dropped. He was up at 59% and 52% disapprove there. Let's take a little bit of a look here. I don't know if we can on the Quantiac poll compared to last week's poll, in which voters were evenly split on impeachment and removal of President 47%. In the latest poll, this is on released on the 25th, before any major news there, that was voters were clearly against impeachment at that time, 37 to 57. Now, let's see. 45% saying he should be impeached and removed, and 49% opposing the idea. Now, actually, there are more in opposition. This is the point we're trying to make. The last poll evenly split. They were evenly split. So yeah, now you have what 49% said oppose the idea, and this is at Quantiac. We'll keep watching this. While nearly half of the voters are currently back impeachment, a majority of voters do still approve at 53 to 43% of the impeachment inquiry being conducted by the White House to determine whether or not to bring impeachment charges against DJ Trump. A week ago, voters approved the inquiry. 52 to 45. So it's a little different there. Dropped 1 point there, but 45% don't approve. The bare majority say the impeachment inquiry is legitimate investigation. 51% there, while 43% said it's a political witch hunt. Republicans say that the inquiry is a witch hunt, 88 to 80, while Democrats say it's a legitimate 92 to 5, with independents agreeing that the inquiry is. And this is one of the things that a lot of the pollsters look at, and pundits, 52 to 40. So from Malloy here, the country remains closely divided on whether to impeach and remove DJ Trump from office. His base remains granite solid. Well, you would expect that in a very polarized situation. Topic impeachment doesn't seem to be on voters' mind. 61% say they are paying a lot of attention to news about impeachment. An additional 25% say they are paying some attention in the news about it. And only a combined 13% say they are paying either only a little or none. So it is on their mind, but other polls have said it's not on their mind. So anyway, when asked in general terms, 40% of voters said that asking a foreign leader to investigate a political rival is a good reason to impeach a president and remove them from office, while 42% said it's not a good reason there. Independents are more evenly divided, 46% saying it's a good reason and 42% said it's not. A third of the voters, 33%, said they believe that President Trump asked foreign nations to investigate Joe Lunchbox Biden in order to expose corruption. However, 48% of voters believe that Trump asked foreign nations to conduct such investigations in order to hurt his political rival. There's no doubt about that. The next debate, only a week away, Warren and Biden both keep their top of the pack positions in the poll, with Warren receiving support from 29% of Democratic voters, independent voters who lean, and Biden getting 26% of support. Sanders seems to be the only candidate left in the mix with the two frontrunners, with 16%, and no other candidate top 4%. And that has been sort of a pattern compared to the September 25th Quinnipiac poll, in which Warren received 27%, Biden got 26, and here that maintains her strength. This is according to Malloy, who has consistently grown since her campaign there. Today, Trump's job approval is nearly identical to a week ago, in which he's not moving ahead, not going back. Biden beats Trump. We went over that. And this poll was taken from October 4th to October 7th. 1,483 self-identified registered voters. This is registered voters, incidentally. They included 646 Democratic voters and independents who lean Democrat with a margin of error. So large margin of error here, 7.5. The Quinnipiac poll is directed by Dr. Douglas Swartz and conducts a gold standard survey using random digital dialing with live interview calling, landlines, and mobile phones. Conducts nationwide polls in more than a dozen states, and where you can find them at the Quinnipiac poll. That's on Facebook, or you can email them at poll@quinnipiac.edu, and also they're on Twitter. So that is that. Incidentally, in the playoffs tonight, we have Game 5 in Atlanta, Georgia. That will the Cardinals. Forget that's the National League division playoffs. And in the American League, very interesting thing happened on the way there. The Tampa Bay Rays are going to Houston, Texas. They'll play Houston, the Astros, in Houston, Texas. Game 5. So we got some Game 5s coming up here, stretching it out all the way. Cards go Game 5 against a very good Atlanta team. Atlanta, I believe, won only second in the National League there. The Dodgers, they are setting out in L.A., seeing basically what is going on there. So hopefully we didn't get that wrong. Some of these division playoffs, the Nats are going where the Nats going. The Nats actually are going to L.A. I'm sorry about that. So we have Game 5 in Los Angeles. That will be the Nats and the Dodgers. They won their game in D.C. I listened to it. I should remember that. And also we have the Tampa Bay Rays in Tampa Bay going to Houston in their Game 5 series there. The Cardinals going to Atlanta, Georgia. Bingo, bingo, and bingo. So in other words, nothing was easy there. The next broadcast, hopefully we'll get the Vegas odds. I don't have them today to see where things actually are in the scheme of things. But we'll stay on that and we'll determine exactly where we're going here with these playoffs. But it has been a very interesting season. Yeah, I don't know if we'll get Yadier Molina's walk-off here. This is the Sporting News. The headline is here, Atlanta and the Cardinals have a better chance of touching down in Atlanta before Yadier Molina's bat does. The Cardinals catcher and hero, he was a Monday night Game 4 of the National League Division Series, was demonstrative in victory. He has every right and reason in helping the Cards and their Devil Magic. That's what the Sporting News calls that. Game 5 will be later tonight in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm assuming President Carter will be there. President Carter incidentally fell, and I hope he got well. He had some stitches. He showed that, and his eye was blackened. But nonetheless, he made it out to the Habitat for Humanity's opening salvo there. He was there. I don't know if he drove any nails or not, but we'll see. Anyway, had Yadier Molina sacrifice fly to left field that scored Colton Wong in the attempt to give the Cardinals a win at Busch Stadium in downtown St. Louis, Missouri. I've always liked that stadium and been there before. And the Nats, I believe Ryan Ziegler blast the Nationals past the Detroit at 6-1, so they're going into Game 5. I'm looking at the Washington Post here, and there's Ryan Ziegler there. That was on the 7th, 400 feet from where the ball landed, and in the seconds after he had found the grass beyond, it was Ryan Ziegler there. And a split second, a moment broke. Ziegler had to round the bases in the 5th inning, do or die Game 4 to help the Nationals sidestep elimination. That was on a Monday night, and they are also scheduled up today. Mr. Scherzer they used him for 14 pitches out of the bullpen. I was in Game 2. Max Scherzer there. Anyway, I'm looking at a little bit here. Doolittle, I remember him. Doolittle and Hudson finished it up. And Martinez needed everything Scherzer had. And Dave Martinez, of course, imagine Dave Martinez when he was a player. Don't want to get too much off on there. Zimmer was asked to consider what may happen next. He has been with the Nationals a very long time, since 2005, since their first season in Washington, since he was a third baseman out of Virginia Beach. Now his days in Washington could be numbered. He's an option next year for $18 million, and he is taking care of that $18 million. Very, very close there. This is actually more we have than we have had on the Monday morning quarterback. So we are looking here. Anthony Reardon nudged the National head by singing in Tred Turner. Tred Turner is a very, very fast person there, and with Zimmerman in there also. It was the same stadium for season-ending loss in 2012, 2016, and 2017. I remember the Nationals have been struggling, but it's a new team. They incidentally used to be the last team there was the Washington Senators. So the Nationals, Washington finally got a team. Dr. Bernanke, the former head of the Fed. He's usually in the stands to watch the Nationals. So it was National 6-1 in the sixth inning. I'm just looking at the lineup here, the fourth inning, and they finished. Let's see, what did they finish that up? 6-1. So 6-1 is very good there. So this will do it for us. This is Boston Red in the Jerry Pippin Memorial broadcast booth on the 9th of October 2017. Greta Thunberg at Pine Ridge. And you will hear from her now. We came in here, Woody Guthrie's granddaughter, singing This Land Is Your Land, Sarah Guthrie. She sung that in San Francisco at a Bernie Sanders rally. Good day.
Students stayed up all night and today finished a ribbon skirt for you. And so I would like Esperanza. So Esperanza, I'm going to let Esperanza introduce herself. And then Greta, if you would come out here and accept this ribbon skirt.
Dr. Esperanza Marcia. Inawayaki Krishna Rema Atewayaki Narema Echa. Uchiwayaki Lindy Mendoza Na Judy Rema Ebu Chakyaku Kakawayaki David Rema Na Eladio Mendoza Wichakya Chantera Nakoshi Rakishke. My name is Esperanza Rema. I live here and I make My name is Esperanza. I live here. I make ribbon skirts, and I'm really happy to give this to Greta.
Thank you, Esperanza. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you for that. I would like to invite Nick Tilson, a brother who served as the executive director of Thunder Valley for many years. And now he's founded and is leading an organization called Indian Impact, which, he's got some announcements to make. We've got some announcements to make at the end of tonight about tomorrow. Called up Nick and asked for his assistance. And Nick Tilson's Ogawa Lakota, and he's a mover. He's the guy who has been getting things done. You saw the splash that Thunder Valley continues to make. And now in his new ventures, we appreciate your work. So if you come out, I would like to give you the microphone, brother, so you can say a few words and welcome.
Nick Tilson, my name is Nick Tilson. I'm a father of four. I have children in elementary, junior high, and high school here at Red Cloud. So let's give it up for Red Cloud. We're all here because the earth is crying for our help. We're here because we heard the voice of young people, and that's why we're here. And it just so happens to be that we as Oglala, Lakota people, for whatever happened to us throughout history, we have this pride in us. We have this no fear in us that was put in each and every one of us to not hold back. And it was a handful of years ago that they shared with us in a ceremony, and I shared these words with you now. And they said, how long are you going to let other people decide the future for your children? Are you not warriors? It's time to stop talking, start doing. You know, I share those words with you because those words led to the creation of the work that you see happening at Thunder Valley, which is trying to build a better future for our people, create a vision for our people of how we want to live. Leading up to Standing Rock, I remember listening to Like She Orville Looking Horse. And he said something when we were in prayer. And he said, as long as there is a need for blood in this black snake, then there's always going to be a black snake. And if you think about that for a minute, what he was actually saying was that as long as we have a dependency on oil, then there's always going to be another pipeline to fight. And we're going to keep battling over and over and over. And so we need to be thinking about what kind of future we want to live. What do we want our future to live? And Thunder Valley is just a small example of what happens when you put your heart and your mind together and make something better for the people.
I mean, if she's getting bombarded, she's carrying a lot of weight, and she needs our love and support, and that's what we're here to do, is to offer that. So Tokata and Greta, if you could, start making your way over here. We're about to start. Tokata Iron Eyes and Greta Thunberg. The guests gets to sit in the amazing quilted seat. And thank you all again for just sharing an evening with us at such short notice on Sunday. Thank you to the people that cooked the food. It's so just good energy. And at first, I'd like you to just introduce yourselves, each of you, and then I'll hit you with a couple questions, or we'll just talk. You know.
Hello everyone, my name is Tokata Iron Eyes. I'm the daughter of Chase and Sarah. I'm also a high school junior here at Red Cloud. I come from the Standing Rock Reservation in North Dakota, and my family and I recently moved here about a year ago to the Pine Ridge Reservation. And so that transition has been a very necessary one, I think, for me in terms of broadening what Indigenous looks like to me and what Native activism looks like for me, because Pine Ridge is a place with a really rich history in Native resistance. And so for me, it's been a really long and awesome learning experience to be here with all of you. But yeah, that's me. I started public speaking when I was 9 years old. My first time was my mother took me to a board meeting for mining for uranium in the Black Hills. And she told me that if I wanted to speak, I could. And so I did, and I have no recollection of what I said, but it had something to do with, I don't want my water to be yellow. You know, at any age, we can see that these things are wrong, and we have the right to protect those things. Simple things that every human being should have a right to. I was also a part of the very first video campaign, our call to action at Standing Rock, and that was when I was 12. Did I just say that? Anyway. Yes, so this type of activism, the stuff that me and Greta have been doing for a while, this is all accessible to every single person sitting in this room, and we need your voice in order to come up with a solution. So thank you for being here today.
Hi, my name is Dakota Thunberg. I am a Swedish climate activist, and I just want to say I am so honored to be here in your homelands and to visit you, and everyone has been so nice and so welcoming, and I am so thankful for that. And also, I'm so grateful for the wonderful gifts I have received. And about me. I'm a climate activist. About a bit over 1 year ago, I started to school strike for the climate outside the Swedish Parliament, where I live. And yeah, since then, every Friday I have been striking from school or protesting wherever I am. And yeah, there is a movement called Fridays for Future, which I'm a part of.
Is that microphone worse, or do I just speak louder and right into the thing? You guys just hold it a little closer. Wow, it's beyond words, really. It's indescribable. It's synchronistic. It's kismet. It's destiny. It's all of those things. We never could have imagined that Greta and Tokata, that those worlds would come together in such a way. We never could have imagined that. We're constantly thinking of how we can best advocate. And we never could have foreseen this. But I would like you guys to talk about how you met. If you could talk about how you met and just, the people would like to know that.
So since Standing Rock, and I'm sure a lot of you already know about what happened, and if you don't, you should read up on it. So since Standing Rock and since my activism there, I've been doing a lot of work around Indigenous environmental rights and missing and murdered Indigenous women. And trying to bridge this sort of divide between what we know as Indigenous activism and recognizing our Mother Earth as a being and something that is autonomous from us and that has been here longer than us. So when I go and speak, I've been traveling a lot and I do miss a lot of school, and I apologize, but also I don't. So I was in DC actually about 2.5 weeks ago, and I ended up speaking at one of the same events as Greta. And that was kind of where we met, in the seats of an audience at the same event. And I remember she told me that I was a hero right before I went on stage, and then immediately afterwards I started crying. And right as I came down, I remember thinking Tugash humbled me a little bit, because I was like, oh my gosh, that's like the best I've ever spoken, and then right immediately afterwards I fell down the stairs off the stage. So, yes, I'm not sure if you witnessed that, but that did happen. But yeah, and I think just being able to relate to another 16-year-old, like we're the same age and we're fighting for the same things. And so to find somebody else in this world where I'm walking down a path that kind of seems that I'm on my own road a lot of the time. A lot of the kids at my school and a lot of the kids that are in my age group just aren't doing the same things that I am. And so to meet somebody else who is equally as interested and equally as courageous was very important to me, and it's very awesome, and I'm so glad that you get to be here today.
Yeah, we met at that event, and I remember I was very captured by your speech because it was incredibly captivating. And then we did some other things together some days after that in the Congress and the Senate, and it's just so good to meet someone the same age who share the commitment, who share the same commitment, because we were born in so different parts of the world, and in many ways we are so different, but also in many ways we are so much alike. We share both the commitment to saving the planet. Yes. And so yeah, I just look up to you a lot because I see that I can feel that you are very courageous, and I feel you're a true person. And some people are indeed very true, and they are very valuable. So yeah. Thank you.
Same thing. I know that there's a lot of criticism because, the system is set up in a way so that a lot of times people who are fighting for the same thing find themselves dividing amongst each other. And so when I think that's why events and conversations like this are so important, because we have to realize that we're all on the same team and we're all fighting for the same thing. So no matter who is in the spotlight, no matter who is getting the most camera time, we have to be able to come together as one under the same set of values and be able to speak to each other on this level of human being and talking about the same things and how we can make real change together without any forms of jealousy and addressing conflict before it becomes something that is out of our hands. And as children, 16-year-olds, I think we found a way to do that, which shows, I think, the people in this room and the people outside of it and all across the country that there is no need for conflict about this anymore. I also would like to say I look up to you just as much. And in DC, we shared a very intensive week together. We were lobbying in Congress most of the time, so it was back-to-back meetings with state representatives. And this can become very draining very fast, because I don't know if you've ever spoken with a politician, but it is a process. Yes, and as an Indigenous person and as somebody who's grown up on Standing Rock on a reservation, and having to come back to this struggle after going to these metropolises like DC, it's a very personal and grudging thing. And so for me, having to bear that part of myself to these people who I need to listen, because they are in power and they are in leadership positions right now. That is a process, and trying to get them to understand how personal and how great of a crisis this is a very long process, and we shared that together. Yeah.
Thank you. Amazing. How it is strange that they are 16. These are 16-year-olds. I don't remember what I wasn't doing this when I was 16. I was not. This just was not. I didn't have all the marbles together, and the jerk wasn't running up there like it is now. And that's because of a very real threat. That's because there are people, human beings, who are causing the climate crisis. We should start there. That's a base precept that there's no argument about. Is climate change human caused, or what's happening? We are causing it. We are behaving like a virus, really. And I wanted to ask you guys, what is your message, or what do you say to sometimes media, I hear them ask questions like, you're so passionate, you're such a climate activist. What do you feel about that term? What does that mean? And how do you feel we can pass that fire around to people?
Yeah, I mean, I get asked a lot of times, like over and over, why are you so passionate about this? And why are you finding this so interesting? And I mean, I'm not doing this because it's like a special interest, or because it's more interesting than other subjects. It's because this is an actual crisis, and people are being threatened. People are being killed by it today, and it's not just something we can look away from anymore. And I mean, instead of asking that, why aren't you so passionate about this? Why aren't you finding this so interesting? And why aren't you spending all your waking hours try to fight for a livable future for everyone? And I just think I don't think people are evil. I just think people are just very unaware of the urgency of this crisis and of the magnitude of this crisis. And I think a first step is to try to inform people what is actually going on and who are these people who are being impacted by it today, and what is there we can do about it, and to just come together despite their differences, and to come together in this fight, in this common fight.
I think that the term climate activist is something that's almost an oxymoron now. A climate activist should be a normal person at the stage that we're at in this crisis. Yes, we should all be working as hard as Greta. We should all be organizing as much as me. Let me tell you, I've been stressed about this event all week, and I'm so happy that you guys are here, but it's a lot of work. And I would imagine that if we were all putting in work, it wouldn't be so stressful. I think for me, something that is always really odd is just thinking about how easy solutions could be. And thinking about the barriers that are almost always imaginary that we put up for each other that are keeping us from reaching true solutions. We know what we need as individuals, and we know what makes us happy, what makes us healthy. And the fact that we can recognize that and deny that to the people around us by being complacent is really a strange phenomenon. And so to the people sitting in this audience, and to whoever is watching online anywhere, we have a moral responsibility to do something about this. It is not about who gets the label of climate activist, who gets the label of doing more. It is about who am I to deny my responsibility to my children and their children? Who am I to deny my responsibility to the human The phrase in Lakota, Midakuye Oyasi, means we are all connected, we are all related. This is, and a lot of people may not translate it this way, but it truly means that we are connected to everything. So when we're talking about the planet, we're talking about the waters, the rocks. We are talking about us. We're talking about the things that build us up and make us able to even have this conversation right now. The things that we're fighting for are not something abstract or not something far away from us. These are things that truly directly affect us and who we are as human beings. As 16-year-olds, right, we can already see the effects that the climate crisis has. We have been denied a childhood. Because who, as a 16-year-old, spends their waking hours thinking about how detrimental this crisis is? Who spends their hours debating whether or not to go and lobby in Congress instead of going to school? These are things that should not exist, and they do.
That's it.
And as we watch and witness the young people continuously acting more than the adults in power, it should be a good enough sign for the mass population to witness that something is wrong with the way that things are going right now.
You know, Greta, how did you get to our homelands here? You know, it's now called the United States. We signed treaties with the United States. But you ended up here on our shores. Can you explain how you got here and what you were doing there and where you're going?
Yeah, I arrived here in the end of August, and I arrived here by sailboat.
Oh.
And yeah, it is. And I did that because I have stopped flying because of climate reasons, and I just thought that I'm one of the very few people in the world who can actually do this trip. So therefore, I mean, why not? Plus, I was fun as well. But and now I've been here for a few weeks, quite a lot of weeks, and it's been amazing in so many ways. And now I'm traveling through the continent and then on to slowly start making it to Santiago de Chile for the COP25, if I make it there.
And wow. So you were on a sailboat for about 2 weeks. She was on a sailboat for 2 weeks. I come from where the buffalo live, and I couldn't even imagine it. You know, when we start with the premise that we're in a climate crisis, when we admit that to ourselves, and then we add to that the fact that 850 people were arrested, were criminalized at Standing Rock, at Nodapo, at Ochete. 800, Tokata had to watch her mom get arrested. A pediatrician who went to Stanford Medical, she had to watch her mother get arrested. She had to watch her father face a potential 6 years in prison. Because these forces, I don't know if we should call them an enemy. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that could be a question. There are forces at work trying to destroy our water, trying to criminalize those who are standing up for Mother Earth, those who want clean water for their children and all living beings. In this state, the governor put into play this riot-boosting law that was recently shot down. They plan to build the Keystone XL pipeline in January. And could you guys talk a little bit about what's going down in Rapid City tomorrow that nobody knows about? So just offer some words on that, and how do we smile through this?
So there is going to be an action tomorrow in Rapid City to protest the Keystone XL and to bring awareness to the climate crisis. As people who live in the Midwest, I think that we can all pretty much agree that there's not a ton of awareness and a ton of communication about how detrimental this time right now is in regards to the climate crisis. And so to be the people who are in the streets and talking about it is going to be something that's going to be really powerful. And so we right now are looking towards the indigenous people of this land because we are the ones who carry the blueprints for the solutions that everyone is looking for. If you are not including indigenous people in conversations and actions about solutions, the solutions that you create are not sustainable. Because as Nick said, we hold 80% of the world's biodiversity. And so the ways in which that we protect our rights, our ways of life, and our communities are directly correlated to the climate crisis. So we think about the mental health within our communities. We think about the oppression and internalized poverty, this way of being that has suppressed us for too long. and we think about how we have ended up at this very position right now where we are at the edge of a cliff. We are at the edge of the cliff in regards to our timeline to save this planet. And the indigenous peoples will be the ones to lead the movement off of the edge. And so tomorrow the action will be at Memorial Park at 11:30 is where we will meet. And we will be marching to the mayor's office to demand more education around this in our schools and to demand that he recognize this really as a crisis and stop promoting the fossil fuel and extractive industries that are destroying our communities.
I have a question. When we talked about those forces. Those forces also tell us what law and order is. Those are the forces that say it's okay for a big oil company to poison an entire river, the entire Kalamazoo, and get away with it. Not so much as a fine, let alone doing time like they're trying to do to us. So in that context, we have to continue to educate about that political imprisonment. When you met Tokata and Tokata met you in Washington, D.C., it was because Greta was receiving an Ambassador of Conscience award from Amnesty International, which is amazing. I think that's the award that Colin Kaepernick won or received. But I would like to know, how do we bridge the gap between indigenous peoples and Europeans? And do you have a message for any of the political prisoners, including the women that are facing 110 years in prison because of their peaceful resistance of the Dakota Access Pipeline?
I think the biggest bridge that we can create among all people, and not just indigenous people and activists, but this underlying community that exists, this global community, I think is the personal action and choice to look at the world and look at the earth as your relative. It is a mindset. Because when people feel like they are personally threatened, when people have been personally affected by causes, when they truly start to care about it. And we are denying ourselves our responsibility and our obligation and spirituality when we are not looking at the earth and the people around us as our relatives. Because who are we if we are not related to the earth? We would not be here if it wasn't for the services that Mother Nature has already provided all of us. How can we continue to call ourselves activists? How can we continue to call ourselves humans if we don't recognize the relationship that already exists there? And so as humans on this planet, I think the most important thing that we can do is look at what is happening to that relationship, what is happening to our relative, what is happening to Mother Earth, and be the ones who decide to take actions, to stick up for ourselves. Because it is our children, it is us right now who are being affected. There are indigenous peoples across the entire globe being affected by this. When we talk about immigration, when we talk about what is happening to low-income communities in regards to the effects of climate change, we're talking about the climate crisis. And it is our responsibility to stick up for those who don't have a voice. If you don't see media coverage about the indigenous activists being assassinated for the work that we sit here and do right now, it is your responsibility to share that and look into it. And I think that is the biggest thing that we can do to bridge that divide.
Yeah, I mean, you said it all, but it's important that we change our mindset, as you said, that we need to realize that everything is related, and we are related to each other, and we should not see each other as groups of us and them, but as a whole us, because we are depending on each other in so many different ways. We are depending on nature, and we are also connected to nature, and we need to see the planet and nature as something which has a value of its own, that we cannot own and exploit, and I mean, as we want. And it's just so important how we perceive the world and to, yeah.
I think that one thing that just like about these potential political prisoners is the fact that we elected these people, right? When we show up at the polls, it shows. And so when we're talking about the climate crisis, we're also talking about our responsibility to vote, because we as people have the power to educate those around us in order to take back the leadership that already exists. I was not speaking into the mic like at all. But yeah, we need to be able to vote, and we need to educate the people around us. Because right now we are at a space and time where voting might seem very minuscule as compared to striking every Friday. But it is what moves nations. It is what bridges divides. It is what creates change. Because right now, those in leadership are not doing what we need them to. And so we need to show up. And that is one way that we can. And, you know, right, with the riot boosting laws, really taking a second to regard that they are taking away our constitutional rights to protest and to free speech. When someone doesn't feel safe enough to share their opinion in a public space, what has this nation become? Because ideally, right, the values that are written into the Constitution should be good. Obviously, we know that they have not been implemented the way that they should have been. An example is genocide. But we signed treaties with this nation, our tribe, and right now we have the responsibility to this land, if not these borders, to be able to protect it and the people within it, no matter if we see them as our enemy. Because we're not fighting for them. We're fighting for their children. We're fighting for their children's children. We are fighting for the next generations. And even if they can't see it, their children will thank us.
And we are lucky enough to live in democracies. And in democracies, the people have the power. And we just have to reclaim that power. Because right now, it may not seem like it, but we are actually the ones who are the ones who have the power. And if we use that power in a good way, then we can accomplish anything. So we just need to fight, and we need to show them what really matters to us, and that this is a matter of life and death for many people, and to mobilize and organize, it is so extremely important in times like these. So there's so incredibly much one individual can do, and if it's one thing, then mobilize and organize yourself and try to push try everything you can to push in the right direction. We need everyone to push from every possible angle into the right direction, because if we start doing that, then we have won.
Yep.
So, you know, I hate to be the one to push us towards a conclusion. But I don't even know what time it is. Time doesn't exist to me anymore. I'm sitting here, I don't have my phones, I don't have nothing. 7:20. Okay, we're all right. We're doing all right. But we do want to open it up to just maybe 3 or 4 questions. Keep them quick. I will give you the mic if you want to ask a question, but the world's eyes are on you guys. And whatever you say and whatever you want to do, whatever moves you want to make, we're going to support you 100%. And this way we can change the entire narrative, change the entire trajectory that we're on as a country and as a human family. I thank you guys. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing. I know you're young, but you're shouldering a lot, and you're carrying a lot of that burden and that weight and collective responsibility you're shouldering and carrying. And we just want you to know that we've got your back and we love you for that. That's it.
Thank you for being here. We live in a place where we're surrounded by people who deny the science, and it's exhausting. And you're one of our inspirations. How is it that you wake up every morning and keep going on? What do you draw upon? Because I am getting tired of all the denial and lack of action. What do you do?
I'll go first. For me, I think there's privilege in thinking that we have that choice, right? Because we live in communities who are affected by this every day, and as an Indigenous person, I can say that there is a very real threat of life or death within our communities when talking about this crisis, because we are on the front lines of it. We are holding right now the last string that is tying us to the world that we used to know and the world that's in crisis. And so for me, it's never really been a choice ever since I was young. Just recognizing the magnitude of what's at stake. Because when we're talking about the land and the waters, when we're talking about our future, these are 3 things that define who we are as humans, and really it's all we have. None of us have anything to lose if we don't have those things, which is why it is wild that not all of us are waking up every day fighting. Because really, what is left of us when we don't have our material possessions? What are we actually made of? I think really that is what keeps me going. And the idea that in this world, as much negativity and as much hate as there is that and more potential for good and positivity.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really have a choice if you understand the urgency. I mean, of course you have a choice. You have a choice to look away, but I mean, we just cannot do that. And I cannot do that because then I would then be able to look myself in the eyes. And also, I mean, as you said, so many people don't have a choice. And it's both very strengthening to see, but also very sad to see that it's often the communities at the front line who are the ones fighting the most, because they don't have a choice, and yet they are not the ones who are responsible. It it should not be those who have to fight the most. And yeah.
It's such a profound combination of worldviews that is expressed, and it's making us just all think anew. And thank you for giving us your energy.
Hi. What are you guys' thoughts on capitalism and how it affects the planet?
I think that there is no sustainable solution if we do not criticize capitalism. Yes. The climate crisis does not care about how much money you have or how well-statused you are within these political borders. We are all on the same level when it comes to crisis. And especially, right, we see that the climate crisis is intersectional in that way. Because as an indigenous person, we can lower carbon emissions all we want, but if we're not protecting indigenous people, what becomes of that last percentage of biodiversity? If we're not protecting a way of life and changing our mindset, then what becomes of the biodiversity? If we are not protecting the essential things and only dealing with carbon emissions, we're not talking about a solution then. We are talking about an inversion of an inevitable defeat. And I think that really the exploitation and the greed that comes along with capitalism is what we need to tackle. And it's a personal decision to look that in the eye. When we are talking about what matters to us, it shouldn't be a question. The answer should always be my children, the environment around me, and the future. And capitalism doesn't save room for any of that. It only saves room for economic growth. Mm-hmm. And what is economic growth if you don't have water? Mm-hmm. It does make sense. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. We've been trying to graduate from labels for a long time, the isms and the ologies.
First of all, I just want to say thank you guys. Both of you two are amazing young women, and both of you guys, it's really empowering being here. I am an educator, and I've been an educator for probably the last 7 years, so I want to ask both of you guys, what is your advice for us as school leaders, as teachers, as classmates? Both of you guys have such a powerful voice, but if you could give us, something that what we need and something that we can put into action Monday. Because we want to, I know as an educator, this is exactly what I hope my students get from my class for being around me, but also what you guys have to offer to us. So any piece of advice or anything you want to share, what would you want to see? I know you guys talked a lot about wanting more stuff for the education and the curriculum, so what does that look like and what do you guys hope for?
I first heard about the climate and ecological crisis in school, and of course it wasn't the entire situation. It was only like a tiny bit of the problem. But I think, and I had to find out more myself because the school, it wasn't a part of the curriculum to learn about the big picture. And so I think that if we start teaching young people about the urgency, and I think young people are going to get angry because I became furious when I realized what was actually happening and what was at stake. And I, of of course, I'm not going to go into details about exactly what it is, but just the broader picture, and to also to encourage young people to take a stand, and to tell them that they can have such a big impact on the world, and because young people are the future, and if we tell young people that they can be a part of that future and they can help shaping that future, I think that will have enormous impact.
I think that, as Greta said, right, informing people about the impact that they can have is going to be really essential. And also, I think in a lot of communities, right, especially right here in Pine Ridge, I think that when people are talking about the impact that we can have as individuals and together, I think we need to also be talking about the resources that there are already available for students to access. Because if you tell a kid to take action, sure, maybe they will go stand outside, but what does it look like if they're confronted by police? What does it look like if they're at the max of the attendance policy for being gone? I think finding these specific pathways for students to take and being there when they have questions. I also think that in the school system as it is right now is very flawed. In a lot of ways, it doesn't give room for criticism. And the ways in which educators can open that is being the ones who say, this is the part where you should maybe ask. Do some research into this part. Because if students aren't adequately paying attention in your classes, they're not going to take the action and initiative to ask the questions that need to be asked. So where is your moral responsibility to say, hey, this is maybe where you should do a little extra research? Because I'd imagine if we all had taken the extensive research that I and that Greta had taken about the climate crisis, we'd have a lot more climate activists. So yeah, I think that really is our responsibility. Teachers are some of the most important people in the entire world.
That's right.
They are the people who are helping raise this new generation of world leaders. And so every single student sitting in your classroom has the potential to change the entirety of this world. And giving them the access to resources and giving them the respect of telling them what is the actual situation that we're in is your responsibility.
And also lots of students, lots of people of all ages, they hear about these things and they get concerned about it, like, oh, maybe this is something I should do something about, and then they're just left there without anything concrete to do. And I think we need to give people examples of what they can do to not lose that engagement. Because then, I mean, a lot of people can just either shell out and say like, yeah, but there's nothing I can do about it. Or they fall into depression or get climate anxiety because it's just too big of a problem. So to tell people things they can do is also very important to not lose the engagement and commitment.
So we're going to give you, and I want to apologize to Bold, Nebraska, because they wanted to ask a question, but we love Bold, Nebraska. We always got your back. But we got to close down here. I also want to thank the Red Club volunteers because they cooked all the chili. put the budget through all the people that do the work. You know what I mean? That's we're only as good as our workers. But I want to give you each an opportunity to close out. You know, say your last words, and then we want you to sit and wait for a quick 10-minute a giveaway and a recognition. We're Lakota people, so we have to give you things. I don't know if you can fit it all. The first Tesla to ever set foot in Lakota country is driven by Greta Thunberg. I don't know if you can fit all his gifts. I don't know if you can fit this, but we want to, President Bear Runner, Red Dawn, and another have brought some gifts to give you, so we want to make room for that. But we want to give you a chance to just say some final words, and then we'll start that portion.
I think the only words that I have left to say are that you all are just as powerful as any of the people that you look up to as heroes. So the Mandelas of the world, the Gandhis, the Gretas, the Tokatas, the Red Clouds, the Crazy Horses, every single one of us has the potential to make just as much change and impact on the world as they had. And it is only us in denial of that potential that is holding us back. When people realize how much power they have, when people realize how much potential they have, it scares the people who are already in position because they know what they're doing is wrong. And so us, as this population, we need to take ownership of that. Take ownership of ourselves again, finally, and stand up and say, I know that this is wrong and I'm going to do something about it. Because right now, it is not a question anymore is if climate change is real. It is inherently, it should be known that this is a crisis that we are facing in our everyday lives. And it is us, it's going to be this generation who changes it.
Well, there's not much I can add to that. Just know your worth and how much you can accomplish. And also, it is so incredibly important that we listen to indigenous peoples because they have been living in balance with nature for so long. And as you said, if we are looking for solutions, we need to, in those solutions, include indigenous people and listen to them and the knowledge they have, you have. It's just something we have to do, and we must never lose hope, because, as you said, it is hard to constantly waking up and feel like nothing is happening, and people are just trying to delay action or make it even worse. But we must simply never allow ourselves to into despair, and never think that this is not meaningful, or it doesn't have an impact, or I can't make a change, because that is so wrong. And I think we young people, we climate activists, and we who are fighting for environmental and climate justice, I think we have proven that to be wrong, that everyone can actually have an impact, everyone can make a difference, and just never lose that set of mind and carry on no matter how hard it will be, because it will get hard sometimes. Just have to go through it and know that you have so many people that are beside you and stand behind you in this fight. You are not alone.
We'll be Bear. We would like to invite President Bear Runner and Secretary Spotted Bear. Also, we'll start with the President. We just want to make sure that we can get some gifts to you. It's very important that we do that.